years after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia is facing a spring of discontent. Rolling digital blackouts in Russian cities have touched a nerve with ordinary citizens, and public pushback against Russian President Vladimir Putin is emerging. The United States is taking stock of a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, D.C., where President Donald Trump was rushed from the scene. A gunman charged a security checkpoint outside the ballroom for the annual media gala on Saturday night, before being taken down by U.S. Secret Service agents as shots were fired.
After nearly two full slow-paced rounds, former Ultimate Fighting Championship bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling recorded a decision win over Youssef Zalal in the UFC Vegas 116 main event. Sterling found an opening with less than a minute left in the second round and secured a 49-45, 49-45, 49-45 unanimous decision across 25 minutes in the fight on Saturday. He had several submission attempts, including a fourth-round rear-naked choke opportunity in the closing minutes. Ukrainian officials say Russian attacks in several regions have killed at least 5 people and damaged a ship in the port of Odessa, as Moscow claimed to have intercepted more than 200 Ukrainian drones. A Russian drone attack killed 2 men on Saturday in Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region, according to Governor Oleh Hyhorov. He said civilians were hit in Bilapil, close to the Russian border.
And Ukraine is marking 40 years since the explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the world's worst civilian nuclear disaster, with survivors of the cleanup operation returning to the site amid renewed debate over its human and environmental toll. At 01:23 on April 26, 1986, a botched safety test triggered a catastrophic blast in Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl plant in northern Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. And acting on the directive of Federal Minister for Power Sardar Awais Legari, the Power Division has formally requested the National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, to abolish application fees and remove licensing requirements for solar consumers. Installing systems of up to 25 kilowatts, the Power Division urged the regulator to align current rules with earlier regulations, since the revised framework could discourage small-scale solar adoption. And growing economic uncertainty in Germany could put more than 200,000 jobs at risk this year, something thousands of Pakistani workers should reconsider if relocating to Europe. A German news channel reported earlier that credit insurer Allianz Trade expects a rise in corporate insolvencies due to the US war on Iran. And the tickets for this year's HBL Pakistan Super League PSL are set to go on sale from April 27. The Pakistan Cricket Board PCB said on Sunday the final, with teams yet to be decided, would take place at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore on May 3, Sunday. The final would also have a reserve day, which is May 4. And the White House Correspondents' Association dinner late on Saturday took an unexpected turn when a man opened fire in the hotel hosting the dinner, prompting the Secret Service to rush United States President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania out of the event. The man, who was armed with a shotgun, fired at a Secret Service agent, according to officials, bringing an end to the glitzy media gala as guests rushed to take cover.
Donald Trump has been rushed out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner at a hotel in Washington, D.C., after a gunman fired shots and tried to breach security. The U.S. President, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and cabinet members were unharmed following the shooting at the Washington Hilton Hotel.
And Ayo Dosunmu came off the bench to score a career-high 43 points on 13 for 17 shooting, and the short-handed Minnesota Timberwolves pulled away for a 112-96 win over the Denver Nuggets in Game 4 of their Western Conference quarterfinals series on Saturday night in Minneapolis. The victory, which gave Minnesota a 3-1 lead in the best-of-7 series, came at a steep cost for the Timberwolves, who lost 2 key starters due to injury.
It was meant to be a glitzy night with United States President Donald Trump addressing journalists at a Washington ballroom, but the glamour was shattered by gunshots that left guests diving to the floor, and the US leader was bundled out by security personnel.
And facing severe public criticism for taxing sunlight, and the Power Division on Sunday directed the National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, to abolish the license fee and even the requirements of a license for solar prosumers below 25 kilowatt capacity. And in a statement issued on Sunday, a weekly holiday, the Power Division said that on the directives of Power Minister Awais Leghari, and it has formally asked NEPRA for a review to abolish the application fee and remove the license requirement for solar consumers of 25 kilowatts and below.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered his military to vigorously attack Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, 2 days after a ceasefire was extended by 3 weeks. Fresh Israeli attacks followed the directive, which came after at least 6 people were killed in strikes on southern Lebanon on Saturday. I had just put my knife and fork down and almost didn't notice the booming sounds coming from somewhere in front of me in the direction of the main entrance to the ballroom at the Washington Hilton. I did a kind of audio double take.
And prospects for a diplomatic breakthrough in the US-Israeli war with Iran appear to have dimmed, with negotiations to end the 2-month conflict stalled, as both Tehran and Washington show little sign of easing their positions. And US President Donald Trump cancelled a planned visit to Islamabad by his envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, dealing blows to peace prospects, while Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi left Pakistan at the weekend. There, and he presented mediators with a potential framework for ending the conflict. And a gunman fired shots in the hotel hosting the White House Correspondents' Association dinner on Saturday, causing United States President Donald Trump and his cabinet to be rushed out before the suspect was taken into custody. Here is a timeline of the incident and its immediate aftermath.
The hashtag Alpine Divorce has exploded on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram in recent months, with many women sharing traumatic, sometimes life-threatening experiences. The term is used to describe an event during a hike or other outdoor adventure when one partner, usually male, abandons the other, who is typically less experienced and more vulnerable in a remote and potentially dangerous setting.
Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah will miss the rest of the Premier League season after suffering a hamstring injury in a 3-1 win over Crystal Palace. Egypt national team director Ibrahim Hassan has confirmed. Liverpool did not announce any update on the 33-year-old Egyptian forward's condition. However, Hassan said on Saturday the Egyptian talisman has played his last game for the Reds.
And Lahore. The public at large, trade unions, associations and civil society groups have widely criticised the government for once again increasing the petrol and diesel prices and sought withdrawal of the decision with immediate effect. They also expressed concerns over the increasing price hike of commodities, transportation and other charges due to repeated increases in the petroleum prices.
Lahore. Punjab will export livestock and meat as the provincial government on Saturday signed a memorandum of understanding with 7 institutions, including a Chinese company, for the purpose. A video link meeting in this regard was presided over by Chief Minister Mariam Nawaz. Under the agreement, 1 million livestock will be exported.
And political realism serves as an important framework for how nation-states conduct themselves to guarantee their continued existence and security. This perspective posits that the international order is essentially anarchic and lacking a central authority. Accepting this reality compels states to develop strategic responses to stabilize their position and fulfill their existentialist purpose in a competitive environment. Over time in this regard, and political realism has evolved into several branches as perceptions of anarchy and the drivers of state behavior continue to evolve. Classical realism focuses on the inherent drive within human nature for power, and while neorealism emphasizes the external constraints imposed by the global structure that influences human nature.
Karachi, after 2 bullish weeks, bears return to the Pakistan Stock Exchange (PSX) as tensions in the Strait of Hormuz and a surge in oil prices amid stalled US-Iran talks dented investor confidence and heightened economic concerns. The benchmark KSE 100 index ended the week lower, though a strong rally in the final session helped to trim losses. The late recovery was driven by speculation surrounding a visit by Iran's foreign minister, which some investors initially interpreted as signalling a possible resumption of negotiations between Washington and Tehran.
Vaccines rarely make the headlines unless there is an outbreak. This World Immunization Week, it is a moment to reflect on how one of Pakistan's quietest public health successes remains one of its most consequential. Since the expanded program on immunization began in 1978, vaccines have helped avert 2.6-meter child deaths, protected millions of mothers and children, and contributed to a 99.8 PC reduction in paralytic polio since 1994. WHO estimates routine immunization averts up to 17 PC of childhood mortality in Pakistan. Iran asks US to lift blockade, warns of response if piracy continues. Macron wants full reopening of Strait in coming days and weeks. Turkey, Germany agree to demining missions Tehran, Ankara. As a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by the US and Iran led to energy shortages, efforts were afoot to restore freedom of navigation in the vital maritime route, with multiple countries offering to demine the strait once peace was restored.
And US President Donald Trump's decision to abruptly cancel a previously confirmed visit by his envoys to Islamabad underscores a defining feature of the current crisis. And diplomacy that advances and retreats at the speed of presidential messaging. Until this latest move, Washington had been sending mixed but cautiously constructive signals. And back-channel contacts and Pakistan's mediation had raised the possibility of direct engagement in Islamabad, potentially involving Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. And US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were rushed out of the White House Correspondents' Association dinner by Secret Service agents on Saturday night after a man armed with a shotgun tried to breach security. Officials said a man armed with a shotgun fired at a Secret Service agent, an FBI official told Reuters. The agent was hit in an area covered by protective gear and not harmed, the official said.
United States President Donald Trump has been evacuated from the White House Correspondents' Dinner at a hotel in Washington, D.C. by his Secret Service agents. The evacuation on Saturday evening came after loud sounds were heard inside the banquet hall of the Washington Hilton, where the event was taking place.
And Anthropic's new Mythos model, promoted as a powerful tool for identifying software vulnerabilities, is facing questions after reports that unauthorized users gained access to the preview system. The company had limited Mythos availability to select organizations under a program called Project Glasswing, allowing partners to test the model for security use cases.
Researchers at Northwestern University have developed a new fuel cell that uses naturally occurring soil bacteria to generate electricity for underground sensors. The device is about the size of a paperback book and is designed to power low-energy systems such as agricultural monitoring sensors without relying on batteries or solar panels.